Hey guys, the squat is one of the most foundational, functional movements that we can do as human beings. We know how to do it when we're kids and we do it perfectly. In fact, if you want to see a perfect squat, take a look at a 3-year-old playing in the dirt. They are squatted down, their bottom is super close to the ground, knees are wide and tracking right over their toes. When they do stand up, their hips and their chest come up at the same time, and they do this with ease. And the reason that they do it so well is that they have all the mobility, all the flexibility, and the proper form for a squat just naturally. So what I want us to do is learn how to squat appropriately so that we have this foundation for all of the squatting movements that we do. So let's jump in. First, I want to talk about the squat stance. Our stance for a squat should be with our feet just wider than our hips, toes just slightly turned out. That's our perfect squat stance. Some people might be more comfortable with their feet a little bit more forward, some a little bit more turned out. That's okay, but we're not necessarily looking for our toes to be, or our feet to be parallel with each other. That's not a normal squatting stance. So, toes turned out just slightly. With our feet, we want our balance to be mid-foot. We want to almost be grabbing the ground with our toes, heels are flat, and our heels are never coming up. We have a flat foot stance on this squat. So to initiate our squat, we want to think about pushing our butt back and then letting it drop down, as opposed to just dropping straight out of the sky. So we've got our proper foot stance. We're gonna start by pushing our hips back, and then we're gonna drop down into the bottom of a squat and back up. Again, hips go back and then down as we go through that whole squat. What we don't want to do is have our hips drop straight down and our knees come forward. This is going to cause us to lift up on our toes, which is not a healthy way to squat. So the way to keep our feet planted, hips back, drop down to the bottom of the squat, standing back up. So as far as depth on a squat, we are looking for the crease in our hips to get below our knees at least. We want to get nice and deep in these squats. In fact, squatting deeply is much healthier and safer for your knees than squatting shallow. Here's how we don't want to squat on a squat depth. We do not want to stop here and come back up. Down to here and come back up. That is not what we want. That applies a lot of extra pressure on our knees, and that's specifically what we want to avoid. By getting the full depth on the squat, we are engaging our glutes and our hamstrings and all of the muscle groups necessary to support the entire movement. This is how it should. Hips go back and down, we're getting below parallel and standing back up. Hips back and down, getting below parallel and standing back up. And if you're at home, you may not be able to see if you're getting deep enough in a squat. It may feel like it, but you may not be sure. You can use a target to touch your bottom two at the bottom of a squat that would let you know you're below parallel or deep enough on the squat. I have a medicine ball that'll be my target here. Again, butt is going back and down, touching my target, standing back up. Back and down, touching my target, standing back up. With this, we're not looking to sit on our target, it's just to let us know that we've gone deep enough. If we're not touching the target, we haven't gone deep enough. You might use a dumbbell, you might use a couple of plates, a pillow would be fine, something that when you know you've touched it, you're below parallel as just a physical reminder. When we squat, we want to make sure that our lumbar curve is maintained in our back, meaning we don't want our back to round out. We want our back to remain neutral. So one way that we do that is by keeping our tummy super tight and keeping our chest nice and tall during a squat. I'm going to extend my arms to help keep my chest tall. Butt goes back, drop down below parallel, and stand back up. Again, keeping my chest tall, butt goes back, drop down below parallel, and stand back up. What we want to avoid is something like this. Arms up, butt back, hunching over, letting everything come down and round out in our back. We'd like to keep that straight. That will give us an appropriate platform in our upper body if we're holding weight, whether for a front squat, dumbbell front squat, back squat, overhead squat. Having that tall chest and maintaining that lumbar curve in our spine tummy tight, chest tall. That will lay the foundation for being able to hold those weights in those positions well and safely. We also want to make sure that our knees are tracking over our toes and not coming in on a squat. For example, we want to avoid knees coming in. We want our knees to come out on the squat. So as we push our bottom back, our knees are going to track wide over our toes, right over our toes, and stand up. So when we practice our squats, butt back, knees wide, chest tall, and stand up. By keeping our knees wide, it opens up our hips and allows us to get deep on our squat. It also helps keep our weight evenly distributed in our foot. Remember, we want to keep our heels flat as we squat, so wide knees will help us get to that depth and allow our feet to maintain planted to the ground. Finally, how do we know when we finished a squat? We finish a squat when we stand up all the way. By standing up all the way, our legs are locked, our hips are locked, and we're standing up. That is the finish of a squat. Here's an example. Chest tall, butt back, knees wide, I'm dropping down, and I'm up all the way. Squeezing my butt, I know my hips are open. That's the finish of a squat. Another one. Up, and I'm done. This is not a finish. Those are not squats. That is not an appropriate way to squat. We want to go all the way down, come all the way up, squeeze our butt, hips are open, and we'll know we're done with the squat. We want to squat just like a child. Feet just wider than our hips, toes slightly turned out, hips go back and then down. While our knees are nice and wide, we get below parallel. Hips are below our knees, and we stand up, keeping our chest up the entire time, squeezing our butt at the end. That is our full squat, and that is the foundation of all of the squats that we do. Every squat should feel just like that. And here's a quick bonus for you. If you struggle getting below parallel or deep into a squat, there's a couple of things that you can do to improve your mobility for squatting correctly. First is using something to hold you at the bottom of a squat. So I have a kettlebell here, and I'm gonna hang on to it. I'm gonna work my way down as far as I can on the squat, and just when I think I'm about to fall onto my bottom, because this is as far as I can go, I'm gonna anchor myself with an object. I might hold onto a pole, I might hold onto a kettlebell, and I'll keep that in front and let that keep me from falling backwards as I sort of lean into this and allow myself to hang out in the bottom of this squat. Again, if I let go of this kettlebell, I'm gonna fall backwards, but I'm just gonna hang on to something and anchor myself and allow myself to ease into the bottom of a squat and let this hip joint open up over time. I'm gonna be really gentle with this, and this is a really good way to develop some additional mobility at the bottom of a squat. Another element of mobility that you might be running into is a lack of ankle mobility. So as you lean forward on that ankle, it pops up off the ground. Maybe you've been a runner for a long time, maybe you have tight ankles, whatever. We can work on that, so we can just get into a lunge position and lay our body weight onto that front leg and just hang out there, not letting our heel come off the ground. We're literally just allowing that ankle to open up. We're loosening up the tight muscles on the back of the calf here. And this is something that takes a lot of time. You just have to do it before and after your workout. And whenever you think about it through the day, it could take months to develop appropriate mobility here, but it will come if you do it. If you need to get a little bit more weight on that leg to create more of a stretching sensation, we can put a weight up on our leg and lean forward into that. Make sure that heel stays down and let that mobility develop in your ankle. It won't come fast, but it will come if you stick with it.